Hello, Tucson Police Suck. Sorry, guys, that I'm late. I will be pulling up Leon Valley pretty soon. Um, so, how is everybody tonight? Newsflash, guys. Thank you for coming to the Goat with the Most. Most of what? You decide. Just to let you guys know, James Freeman was successful in getting his gun back. They were going to tell him, no, sorry, since you can't get your gun because there was no way to trace it to him, even though here in Texas, you know, but still. Hold up, guys. Give me a second here. I'm pulling it up, and if anybody's talking, sorry if I can't see you. As usual, it says it will begin shortly. Well, before they get started, like I said, I got it up and ready for you guys. And we're just waiting on Leon Valley. But yeah, Leon Valley, it's been something else. And it's supposed to, the meeting's supposed to start around 6:30. I know I'm a little early, guys. I'm not late this time. Um, it's pretty much a double header today. I mean, not only did they get the full-on Freeman, but it was something else. And the nice thing about me doing this on my stream is you guys can actually talk to each other. Hilton Bordy Gruffer? Okay, not sure what that's supposed to mean exactly, but okay. Yeah, guys, I'm also using my other device, aka the phone. So I don't have to be here, monitoring it. I can actually put their meeting on full screen. Oh, in your language. Okay. Okay, back to their video. Are they late? Yeah, they're about late, as usual. Up, I hear sirens. Are they coming for the goat? Who knows? I don't give a rat's butt, man. They can come after me if they want. But yeah, guys, please be patient. They are slowly getting up, and as you guys can see, I do keep going in, seeing if they're doing what they're doing. Okay, good. Yeah, I don't know if you guys like the thumbnail that I chose, but it's a good one. Uh, Guys, please give me 1 minute.
Order the Zoning Commission of June 8th.
And the new chief is better.
5. And welcome everybody. Sorry for the delay. 6:30.
Okay.
Under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
Okay, guys, is it coming in on your guys' end?
I see that we have 3 counselors in attendance. Do we need to read a disclaimer, or anything regarding that? Okay. I know it's on the agenda. I don't know if we don't normally have 3 in attendance, so I want to make sure that everything's okay. Oh, up here, you can't come up? Okay.
I'll carefully monitor the situation.
I give Bradshaw the keys. Make sure that they be quiet. Well, the problem is if they speak publicly, then they're speaking with each other. I think that's a problem. Because there's 3 of them. Will, you have some clarification or knowledge?
Nothing like a little bit of
heard that in the
BS.
past with the past administration. I don't believe it because the idea is that we would be in violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act because we're a quorum.
Right.
But we're in a public meeting. This is a public meeting, and we're talking city business that's been published and it's open to the public. So we could talk on items on an agenda that you guys are talking about. What we can't do is get up here and say, hey, let's talk about something that we're going to put on the next city council meeting and discuss it. Like, that's just not published. So that's my understanding of the.
So I think if you 3 are comfortable with that, I think ultimately it's your risk. It's not ours, I don't believe. So if that's
That's responsible for what I say.
so if that's comfortable with you guys, it seems reasonable to me, and I'm fine with it. Thank you for coming. We have a larger than normal group of people. Appreciate that. We have a citizens to be heard, which is specifically set aside for discussions that are not on the agenda, but relating to zoning. If you have something that you want to talk about during the agenda, we have specific sections during those individual pieces to talk about citizens be heard, but as the council has adopted, we're also adopting the raise your hand like everywhere else and say, hey, I want to be recognized. So we'll do our best to recognize that. There is some exception to that. When we're in discussion as a commission, we might not call on you if we're in a discussion, which is towards the end of that session anyways. So just want you to be aware of those. Oh, yes. And when you do speak, we do need you to come to a mic so that people that are watching, the one person watching, can hear you. And it's also for the record. So that's the way we take our notes as well. So welcome. Is there anybody who has a topic they would like to speak about for citizens to be heard? Sweet. Moving on to new business. Is there any business that needs to be prioritized over any other one, or are they all in good form? Okay. All right, so we'll go to new business A, discussion and possible recommendation on ordinance amending chapter 15 zoning code regarding rear and side yard setbacks for accessory buildings in the R1 single family dwelling district and a public hearing on said amendment. Interesting. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Thanks, audience. Okay, so we have a bunch of code amendments that we're processing tonight. They all have different reasons for doing them. Our first one is a code amendment to the zoning code for rear and side yard setbacks specific to accessory buildings in the R1 single family district. And so right now, the code says, it has different setback requirements for the main building. Main buildings have a front yard setback. R1, I think it's like 25 feet. Side is 5 feet, and then there's a rear yard setback. Accessory buildings have a specific regulation that pertains to them, and it says accessory buildings shall be allowed, but shall be located no closer than 5 feet from any property line and must be located in the rear yard. So you can't put it on the side, you can't put it in the front. It has to be behind the main front setback. It says no case shall an accessory building occupy more than 30% of the total open space in the rear yard. So, we're all kind of familiar with the proverbial, there's a new accessory building back there and the whole place just gets filled up with accessory buildings. The idea is that we're trying to promote open space. And so, however, I've been here for about 3 years. We're a built out city. These neighborhoods have been in place for anywhere between 10 and 50 years. So we have a city with a lot of accessory buildings, and they're there for lots of different reasons. And so accessory buildings come up quite a bit. So this code amendment is intended to address two things. Number one, it's intended to address lots of accessory buildings throughout the city, and potentially fix those situations and assist with homeowners and being legally non-conforming. And it's also intended to address one particular situation that we have at hand as well. And so, and for that particular situation, our attorneys have advised us to go ahead and go forward with this code amendment. I'm not going to get into the details because that is pending litigation. But so anyway, I'm going to go into the specifics code amendments, and y'all can ask me questions on why those if you want to. The specific code amendment, the two code amendments are to still keep this 5-yard setback, except in two particular instances. One is if that accessory building happens to be located in a side or a rear yard that abuts an alley, then and that alley has a minimum of 20 feet. 20 feet is the standard alley. Why is 20 feet a standard alley? Because that's the minimum for a fire lane. 20 feet is also pretty logical for getting a trash truck down and putting your garbage on either side. City of Leon Valley, we used to require alleys a long time ago. Alleys that used to be pretty standard anyway. You go to older parts of the city of alleys. Developers don't like to do that anymore because it costs extra money. You can just use the street. But if you have an accessory building that is right on an alley right away, that's not going to affect any codes. The main reason why you want to have a 5-yard setback from any setback, like rear or side yard, is because of fire code. Fire code requires 10-foot separation between buildings for fire. For making sure a fire doesn't spread. 10 feet is the magic number. So if you have 5 feet on one side and you have 5 feet on one side of the property and 5 feet on the other side of the property, you accomplish that 10 feet. Well, if you have a property line in a 20-foot alley, you've got 20 feet. So you have double the distance of the fire code. So as your planning official, I recommend that it's fine to put accessory buildings right on the property line as long as it butts up to an alley. And then in this second one here, this addresses an existing situation that we have. We have some guests here, Mr. Robert Giltribble. We're not going to get directly into that this evening, the details, but our attorney has advised us that to move forward with these code amendments to potentially address that situation. So this last one is no setback shall be required for accessory buildings located within a side or rear yard, which were constructed prior to July 7th. I missed the two. Prior to July 7th, 2021. Why July 7th, 2021? That would be the potential date that the code finalization, if y'all recommend on this, that would be the final date the city council would potentially approve this code amendment for ordinance.
That's a grandfather clause.
Exactly. And are located a minimum of 10 feet from the nearest structure on an abutting property.
And the fire department is good with that.
The fire department has not expressed any concerns with this. No.
Do fences count as structures?
No.
Ew.
I got
Sounds
lots
like
of
one of them farted almost.
scared.
When was the last time this thing was changed?
I think we were looking at this. I think it was 1968, I think is when it was changed. Yeah. So before 1968, what the code said was that there would be no required setback from a side or rear property line as long as your accessory building was located at least 15 feet from the main building. So at some point, I think it was in the 60s, because we looked through these different codes, and somewhere in the 60s, we got rid of that 15-foot setback, and we actually put a 5-foot setback in there. And
I think it's a good idea that we're relooking at some of these things. But I also want to see pictures of where this thing's at. It's been going on for a long time. If I remember correctly, several years ago, this came before the zoning.
So again, and I don't want to interrupt you I hate to interrupt you, but this code amendment is not specific to any one particular.
Okay.
This code amendment
In
will
the chat,
address
show me if you want it, one,
all
if you
the
want it to
accessory
stay like
buildings in the
this,
city,
or two, if you want me to
including
enlarge
one
the meeting.
specific, I guess,
To
matter that
enlarge,
Listen, this came up because
one,
of this
keep it as it is.
situation.
But I'll tell you, it's something. I wasn't here whenever we addressed Mr. and Mrs. Tribble's situation, but I've had other accessory buildings that have come up, and so what this is intended to do is be proactive with other situations too. Just like we have lots of different things in this city. I'm always looking at how can we resolve all this stuff, and accessory buildings are kind of one of them. And so this is intended to take care of all those situations and help homeowners. And
Do we have an idea of how many land or homeowners this will bring relief to?
I don't know. Do you have an overview, a picture of where this particular thing has come up because of a particular situation?
Right. But I would say,
I know what you're saying. It's addressing everything.
Yeah.
But this wouldn't have come up if it hadn't been for this particular situation.
and I would say I wrote what's in red myself, and I
Carnival,
wouldn't have
chill,
written it
you
if I didn't
stupid
feel
turtle.
comfortable with it potentially applying to other situations. I will tell you, something else that we're looking at doing too in the future is, through our coordination with council, we've talked about looking at special exceptions a little bit more detail. And so we may develop a special exception process. We may go in that direction with these types of matters, which provides the Board of Adjustment a little bit more flexibility on dealing with this. But for right now, this is what our attorney has advised us to do in order to resolve current
Their
situations with
attorneys,
accessory buildings
AKA the
and
judge.
potential other accessory buildings. And I'll tell you, I wrote this in a way that doesn't scare me.
Anybody who's seen
I'm not sure
Freeman's
that, because
stream today,
this
can
is
see
opening
that.
up a window for potential things, and it's like it's not. So again, it's not like somebody can come in tomorrow, and it's not like somebody can come in or it's not like somebody can come in right now. They can't, because this won't be finalized until July 7th. But say July 8th, somebody can't come in and build an accessory building right on the fence next to your house. Why? Because chances are your house is not next to an alley, and if it is next to an alley, you have 20 feet of separation between you and that house anyway. So what's the matter? Or it wasn't there, so they're not allowed to have it. This only addresses accessory buildings that are already there, and so I would say in terms of your concern about who this affects, I don't know, because I can tell you right now, I'm not getting calls on accessory buildings right now.
So we have less than a month to build accessory buildings.
No, you have less than a month to plan.
You can't. Even now, the way the code is, you still couldn't do it. So really, there's no downside other than
You have to
it
get your permit
grandfathers in the people that
Yeah.
already have these sheds or whatever.
Yeah.
Too close.
It has to be there.
It
Vice
was,
Chair?
no.
Okay.
Do you know what other cities have done to rectify the same situation?
A lot of cities have, clauses about if something was constructed prior to this date. I mean, that's how if as a city you're not concerned about this, if you're not concerned about accessory buildings located on the property line next to an alley, and if you're not concerned about, buildings that were potentially constructed before this date, based on the fact that we haven't gotten complaints about it, then I would say that that would hopefully make you feel better about it. But to answer your question, cities they do code amendments that apply to a certain date, I guess, and that's what leaves you legally non-conforming in the subdivision code. If it's done before a certain date, you don't have to do it. You don't have to make the improvement if you were platted before a certain date. So I don't know.
Okay. So I live in a neighborhood with 10-foot alleys. My entire neighborhood is 10-foot alleys. And my almost entire neighborhood, people that have sheds that have been around almost as long as their houses, are not 5 feet from the fence. So I can see where this would be a problem with multiple buildings having an issue with this. my question comes with all of the structures in our neighborhood being not 5 feet from the fence, sometimes also from the side fence, which has no alley because it's just a fence between yards. What about people that want to build new ones? Are they still only set to the 5 foot setback that's original, or do they now lose 5 extra feet of their yard because they have to put it 10 feet from the nearest structure?
They would lose 5 feet of the yard. They wouldn't be able to construct that. To my knowledge, they would. I don't think we'd be able to permit that because it wouldn't meet the fire code. So that is something to think about.
Okay.
And the other thing, again, this is what our attorney has advised, and so particularly B would potentially resolve the current matter that we have. And the attorney has also advised that y'all could change B back and take B away in the future, because once B on there is passed, or A and B, what that does is that would consider the Tribble's current building as legally non-conforming. Even if we changed it back, it would still be legally non-conforming because it was conforming at one point in time.
And we needed A and B, not just B.
A and B addresses their situation.
I got something to say.
Mr. Bethlehem?
If we agree to this, to make this, I know you probably cannot answer. I wish the city attorney was here.
How many
all this
times do they
litigation
need to adjust the mic?
I can't guarantee that. I don't know. Again, this is, our attorney has advised the city to take this action as a potential measure towards a resolution. But it's still pending. So this doesn't mean it's going to get resolved. This is just,
I don't want to see the city pay out any money.
well, again, and that's the thing. What we're talking about tonight is just simply a code amendment that our attorney has advised that could potentially aid in the resolution of that matter. And based on direction from council, they would like to see this code amendment as a way of potentially addressing other illegal structures within the city that there are issues with. And so again, I understand where you guys are coming from. There's no way to know exactly all the different situations out there. And so if you feel uncomfortable with that, you can change this back. You can change whatever you want to on this back later without compromising any kind of assistance you'd be accomplishing tonight towards resolving that situation. Does that make sense?
Commissioner Vice Chair Rouse?
So my main problem is with the wording. I mean, I wish we didn't have to do this. We're always doing things to help forgive people that have built things or done things that they either shouldn't have or didn't know they shouldn't have, or a long time ago they could have and now they can't. Which is sort of the nature of living in the city that has buildings older than the early 2000s. But my problem is, what sort of problem are we creating for people that would like to be in compliance and are now losing part of their yard? Or were in compliance when they built their building because they have the 5 foot setbacks, but someone else's building is too close. Does that someone else now have to tear their building down and scoot it over? I'm just wondering about the hardship that we're causing for.
Again, when I wrote this, number one, I was thinking about what window are we opening up for however long period of time that y'all or the city council may deem that window be appropriate to be open. So that's why I did July 7th. That covers everything that was built before that date, and I covered the 10 feet, which basically ensures life safety.
Right.
So I wasn't really thinking about taking away land. I was just thinking about catching people's buildings on fire.
Right.
But that's a really great point. I didn't really even think of that in this situation because part of me is thinking y'all may want to roll this back too. If y'all decided to keep this, it wouldn't freak me out either.
Left.
'cause
Quit
it's safe
rocking
and-
that
I want to
chair
say,
and
Brandon, every time that
actually
you
pay
say y'all
attention
want to
to
roll
the
it back again,
meeting.
makes me want to not do this at all. Yeah, and I think it's a good idea. I would just rather, if you're going to support this, support it.
Well, I'm saying you could roll it back because the attorney has specifically said you could roll it back.
So there's an option in the future.
Because yeah, when I write things, I'm always worried about what am I potentially recommending to you guys that this
Thank
community
you.
is going to have for a long time. And the attorney specifically said a lot of times to resolve situations like this, you can do a code amendment to make something legally non-conforming, and then you can change it back if you want to.
But
You
the
don't-
people that were affected by that code amendment would be grandfathered in.
Exactly.
So are we doing this is this, I don't know the one particular situation, but I do know that a lot of people will build something on their property without getting a permit.
It happens.
Is that what we are kind of correcting? Like, I mean, I don't want to make people tear down their buildings that they built, but at the same time, how are we going to go forward? Because if we go backwards every time something like this happens, then it looks like we just fly by the seat of our pants and change amendments when we need to, and we need to let the city know, like, hey, you've got to get permits for this stuff. It's this kind of the same with the car wash. Like, they went and did something and then asked forgiveness later, and it's like, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
So
Doing that a lot.
That's a good point. I mean, there's really, I guess if you think about it, there's 3 different kinds of accessory buildings in this city and people's residential backyards. There's accessory buildings that got a permit, which means they comply with whatever setback requirements were in place at that point in time. So that means they're legally non-conforming, and we don't have to worry about them. This doesn't address them. They don't need to be worried. They're allowed to have it there. And if it's right on the property line, then you've lost that 10 feet anyway. And there's nothing you can do about it because it was built according to code standards. You can't make them take it down, or there's accessory buildings that were built without a permit and don't comply with the setbacks. Or there's, maybe accessory buildings that didn't get a permit, but fortunately they do comply with the setbacks.
There's a
So,
very old saying, you can't
this was
beat
really
a dead
addressing the latter of
horse.
the doing.
is there like a
And what they're doing is
fine
beating
or
a dead horse.
something, like if you build something without a permit and it's not conforming, what do we do?
Harmony,
I mean,
yes.
If we find out
This
about
is
it,
live,
a lot
straight
of times we don't
from
find out
Leon
about it. But
Valley.
when we do
Yeah.
This
find
is
out that
going
anybody
on
did any kind of work without a permit,
ETA
we
now.
charge their contractor.
okay.
We don't typically punish them because
Because the contractor should know that they need a
exactly,
permit.
we're not in the business of punishing homeowners for that because that's what you hire a professional to guide you through the process.
Right.
I had my water heater replaced and I'm not going to go down and pull the permit. That's what I'm paying them for.
Mhm.
And
So,
keep in mind, guys,
Maybe they were exempt from it. I
the
don't know.
next
So, yeah,
meeting is in a
have
couple of
contractor
days.
penalty
If you
fee.
want me to go,
So it incentivizes
But if
them.
somebody
as
does it
always, these
themselves,
things
I mean, if-
cost money.
Yeah.
Handyman just,
And
throw
feel
something
free to
up.
donate.
Happens. Well, then if we find
If you
out
don't
about
want
it,
to, that's fine.
usually we'll go in and. the
I'm always
inspector
happy
finds
with
it.
the
It's
thumbs
really-
up,
it just
thumbs down,
we don't have those
views,
situations a lot with
comments.
residential stuff. With residential stuff, it's like bigger things, like somebody drives by and says they're adding on to their house. Did they get a permit for that? And there's no permit, and then we issue a stop work order, and then the building, and then then the contractor comes in acting embarrassed, and we say, okay, you have to pay an extra $300 now. That's usually how it goes.
Commissioner Prophet?
You made one comment there that I'm really curious about. You said you go after the homeowner or the contract. You go after the contractor.
Right.
Did we go after the contractor in the case of the triple?
Again, not getting into the specifics.
I don't
of
want to
that
go
one.
back. I don't want to go back. I just was trying to correct something you said.
I don't know what happened with that.
There's
case.
one more thing I have a problem with this, just the way it's written.
Okay.
And that is, it must be in the rear yard. And just read back through the text and everything. You can't have, I want to know what that definition is. If I have a house that sits in the middle of a lot, I've got 2 side yards and I've got a rear yard. Now, is the rear yard everything from property line to property line? Property line of the building.
Okay.
Exactly. Now, if I have a house or a hut that stretches beyond the edge of the house, that's not going to work. What you just said. I just want to go a little further because I look at this and I say, well, if I had a hut and it were beyond the edge of my house in the side yard, but yet I'm in the rear yard, I'm not compliant. Don't worry about it. I can go find 11 of them in 30 minutes.
Is the rear yard from the front face to the back property line, or from the back
We're making
face
it.
to the back property line?
Okay, I see what you guys are saying here. Because it says, accessory building shall be allowed, but shall be located no closer than 5 feet from any property line. In our specific case here, the rear is the side. There really is no side.
It is.
There really is no rear. They're just two sides.
Well, I don't disagree with that, but I'm trying to see what it is for a real house.
Yeah. So okay, I'm thinking here with you guys. So,
The rear yard would be the yard up to the back of your house, and your side yards would be just the side to the fence. And your
Okay.
front yard is from the front to the front.
But-
So your side yards are real short. They don't go all the way.
Okay,
so how about
I
this?
want him to say that.
So how about this? I think this addresses your concern because you're saying this. What you're basically saying is this is casting a pretty wide net for side yards, and we need to limit side yards. So let's say no setback shall be required for an accessory buildings located within a side or rear yard which abuts an alley. So that one's fine. If the side yard abuts an alley or if the rear yard abuts an alley, it's okay.
Right.
But the second one is the problem. So it says no setback shall be required for accessory buildings located within a rear yard which were constructed prior to July 7, 2021, or a side yard which abuts an alley. Or no? I think maybe we can just take side off of that.
So the way I see it, and I don't know if this is right, but for me, like my backyard is everything in my fence. So the side yard, the backyard, it's all the same area. But I don't want somebody putting a shed in between my house and their house on my side, on the other side of the fence. That's what I'm saying. And that sounds like what the side yard is. Like the side of the house between houses.
Do we have a whiteboard?
Right, yeah.
Well, you're still okay because you've got 10 feet. If you have 10 feet,
Yeah, I think so.
you're still okay. So that's not in violation of B. B's okay.
But what about the people that have bigger lots, more space between them? I mean, can somebody just throw a shed up in the middle of their?
Side piece, side
Yeah,
yard?
yeah.
Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, that's
So,
what.
and really, the whole problem with the side yard thing is our situation is on a corner lot, so that's what's creating the complication. So again,
I have a
what we need to
solution.
work, we just need a simple wordsmithing thing here addresses it. So I can work on this.
Corner lot means that it's
Yeah.
on a corner with two alleys or two roads.
Yeah, exactly. So on a corner lot,
So
yeah,
located
what if you
within
just said-
a rear yard or
What
a
if,
side yard adjacent to.
what if you just say
which is
property
basically the same
line?
language above it, right? Within a side yard. Well,
If you
I
just
suppose
say the
like-
property line abuts an alley, then you don't have to specify which yard. It's just if your property line abuts an alley.
well, we need, in our situation, we
The
need
front yard doesn't
there's an
abut the
issue with
alley
both,
ever,
there's
right?
a issue with both sides. So,
Yeah.
And again, I see where your concern is, but we're not talking about future accessory buildings. We're talking about existing ones. So I guess that's the thing that we need to, we're just talking about accessory ones. And I think if we're kind of the simple question is, are we in the business of going around making people take down their accessory buildings that have been up, or, that's kind of
So, I
the
mean,
situation with at least temporarily too.
if we were to say we just granted a blanket amnesty to all of these, regardless of whatever, we're not going to do that, but
Yeah.
say we did that. Do we ever do an inspection of the building to make sure it's safe?
We always do. We always do inspections of accessory
Okay.
buildings.
Is that included in this amendment inherently, or is that something that needs to be called out?
That's just, you have to get a permit to construct an accessory building.
But you're saying that
For the ones that didn't get
the one that didn't get a permit,
They're just there.
they're just there. So do we need,
They
but
will
they're
not
just
be
there.
inspected.
but can we require an inspection
Yeah.
to ensure that it's a safe building?
No. I mean, you can't.
And even the ones that didn't get a permit?
Only
Yeah.
if they change it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for the same reason, we can't go into somebody's house and inspect your house. So, I mean, I'd say, no, we're not going to go inspect people's accessory buildings for the same reason. I'm not going to come over to your house and make sure it's still safe, because we just don't do that with houses.
That doesn't really, I mean, if you're going to have to inspect everything new coming in, it's not really fair that everybody else has built something already that they didn't get permission for.
Yeah.
And they're, and then we're going to say, well, we don't need to inspect it. And then it's a fire hazard, or if they're storing, God knows what in there. It's kind of, it needs to be like a balance.
So in that case, I'd recommend, it sounds like you guys are concerned with that, and I totally understand your concern, because these two were both intended to specifically address this situation. And
But it's going to address all of them.
so I'd say y'all could potentially come back and change B at a later date if you want to. If that makes you feel better, and that I can bring that back to you guys.
Oof. Okay. Commissioner Campos.
Brandon, in the future, is there a way that you can come, I saw all the agenda packet, as you issued it, but a lot of this, it would help if you had pictures or diagrams that we could see. And that way we can actually understand them rather than just in an abstract way.
Okay. Yeah.
So that way there would be examples. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. This is what it should look like. Thank you.
Can I say something? I'd like to see our overview. We can pull it up on Google.
We don't want to get into their particular case here. We're talking about.
Well, this whole thing came up because of that case. I don't know if it sounds to me like politicians are pandering to certain situation. That's the only reason this has come up.
If y'all want to change this back, you can. Again, like I said, the attorney said.
And again, every time you say that, it makes me say that this is a bad idea to move forward.
Yeah.
Anytime that is said repeatedly, tells me this is a bad law.
I don't like that we could just come back and change it later.
Like that is
Like we're basically doing this for one person.
Means that we need to make I mean, I'm at the point where I think we need to table this, because this does not seem like any of us understand this. It seems like it's been rushed through. It seems like it's poorly, well, not poorly thought through, but it's rushedly thought through.
I'll tell you, I don't have any concerns with A. B is the one that is probably a little bit trickier, but
I mean, my intent is to help our citizens out. That's my intent. But I want to make sure we're making the right recommendations for our council. And making recommendations on something that seems very rapidly put together seems kind of sketchy to me. Commissioner?
I'd like to make a comment that this is the best I've ever seen. A whole lot of this has never been this good. So, I mean, I see it as an opportunity. I don't see anything fundamentally wrong with it. But the last time we did a really big meeting on the triples, I went out and in 45 minutes before the meeting, I counted 11 complaints or 11 violations. And that was just on property lines. Okay? So we can't go find them all. We can't beat all the old people up because they built them back when. Okay? So you just ignore them. And I'll say this, I'd like to put stipulation in there that you can't complain unless we know who you are.
no, you can't do it. You can't do that.
No people ever stepped forward to claim their complaint. To me, that is not being able to confront the accuser. That is the biggest violation I can see. The second biggest violation is that for the city to go forth and accept a complaint, and they're supposed to have the paperwork so they can back it up, they turn that on the resident, that is totally uncalled for. If they can't produce the paper, then they ought to shut up and deny the complaint. I disagree with Commissioner Blackmore about whether the city should pay any lawyer fees or.
Point of order, I don't,
Yeah, we're not.
We're getting off topic.
just- Yeah.
You're gonna get it again. The next time it
Yeah.
happens.
You're already out of
another
order.
question.
Yes, ma'am.
So I don't have an answer to the big one.
Move
there's
on.
nothing-
Next
in my
subject.
opinion, at
Next
this point, there's
subject.
nothing
Come
wrong
on,
with
let's
this.
move. Let's save some time
You
here.
can fix it, but in my mind, you don't have to fix it because you're gonna grandfather everything anyway.
And
By
again,
the way, the Leon Valley lawyer says
Yes,
grandfather
Linda.
doesn't.
Retaliation is
Direct
real
quote.
for this place.
So anybody using the word grandfather, you can put that one away.
well, grandfathering is a generic term for being legally non-conforming. So people use grandfathering. It's not a real term.
I was directed to never use it by a lawyer in Leon Valley.
Right. Legally non-conforming is the proper legal term.
Legally non-conforming. It's not legally non-conforming.
The Xanax did.
If we pass this, are we going to have, what I'm worried about is we let this go through, we recommend to council, and then a year from now, somebody comes in and says, oops, I built a shed. Can we change the amendment again? Can we change the code again? If we do this every time somebody doesn't do what they're supposed to do, we have no right to, get upset about things. Like if, and I don't know this particular situation at all. I've heard about it. I don't know anything about it. So just take it with a grain of salt. But if we're going to change a code so that we can grandfather, everybody in that's not conforming to what the city's standards are, then are we going to open ourselves up to lawsuits if we don't change the code for somebody else?
We can just start saying Larry it in.
Does that make sense? Like, do you know what I mean?
I think the date down there captures you right there. I mean, you're saying from July
Right,
the
but we're
7th
doing July 7th, so what's to stop us from saying, okay, in July 22, we'll change it again? And
So the attorney advised putting in a statement that says no setback shall be required for accessory buildings located within a side or rear yard, because that would potentially capture this particular situation we have. But I went a step further and put in that date on there and he said you can potentially change it back if you want to. But I went a step further and put which were constructed prior to July 7th, 2021, because I don't know how long it might take. It might take a month for us to change it back if y'all did that. It might take 2 months. I mean, we have pretty packed council agendas. And so I went ahead and put it in that way. Nothing can get constructed during that time period. Either way, if you're to put no setback shall be required for accessory buildings located within a side or rear yard, it still makes them legally non-conforming. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I totally understand y'all's concern because it's a difficult situation to resolve. By resolving one, you're kind of resolving all the other ones too.
What if we stepped back for a moment and said, if we were to rebuild this whole section, would we only use B without a date?
I wouldn't advise that.
And if we did rebuild this without a date, why would we or why wouldn't we want to do that? And what are the reasons for that? Because that should inform why we adopt it or don't adopt it. Like if we just said no setbacks required for accessory buildings on a side or rear yard, if we change the code amendment to that, what are the implications of that? What are the benefits? What are the drawbacks?
Well, then you're potentially setting up situations where you're not meeting the fire code. Again, I advise y'all right now to always be pursuing not allowing accessory buildings from this day forward.
So if we're not meeting the fire code, why are we allowing that?
Well, because B does meet the fire code.
Okay, well, so
B does meet the fire code. So if somebody comes in and next week somebody calls me and complains, and I will tell you, I've got a few accessory building situations, but I don't get calls. My phone is not ringing off the hook about accessory buildings.
Take a seat on that.
And so I'm kind of, what I'm doing here is I'm working on something, a situation that is a matter for the city of Leon Valley, a situation where I've gotten feedback from my council members, And also a situation where, you know, I'm telling them I'm not getting complaints about these accessory buildings. So they're able to kind of respond to what do the citizens want? You know, like, I mean, again, we're always talking about citizens are telling me this, citizens are telling me, the citizens are not telling me they're really worried about accessory buildings. I totally respect the fact that y'all are, but I'm not getting calls from people saying, oh my God, this town
So
is
if they're
out of
not worried
control.
about it, so on B, we got rid of which were constructed prior to July 7, 2021. Would that be fire code? Fine.
It wouldn't, because that's what I'm saying. I recommend that you say and are located at a minimum of 10
Right,
feet
no,
from
I'm
the
saying,
nearest
and we
structure.
include that part.
Yeah.
We include the whole thing except for cut out that middle part.
Just take the July out and leave this amendment alone forever.
Well, if you take the July out, then following July 7th, when this is finalized, somebody can come in and stick an accessory building on
And
that
that's my
property.
point, like, why would we prohibit somebody
Because
from
what if
doing
they
it in the
want to put
future
it
if we're
next
willing
to,
to do it now?
but what if they want to put their accessory building right next to somebody else's accessory building that's not 5 feet away from the property or less than 5 feet? If you don't leave that July 7th in there, we're acknowledging there's probably problems out there, but we're acknowledging we're just going to keep making it worse, and we're going to create more problems. What this code amendment does is it doesn't create more problems. It just to some extent accepts what exists.
So it accepts the current risk and tries to prevent future risk, though we'll probably change the date to July 2025 next time.
It's up to you guys.
Yeah. It's like the current council.
So, but I'm serious. Like, this doesn't make sense to me, Brandon, and I need to understand this. Like, why, if we're moving forward with this, why aren't we making it equitable to all citizens that they can do this?
Because we're accepting that these situations are not good. They're not ideal. We're just trying to figure out a way.
What makes it ideal? What can make it ideal?
Giving everyone
So-
a rebuilding.
Again, what I've attempted to address up here is address the situation we have.
And I don't care about that.
No, but
What I
also
care
want-
about is this being a good code for the future. How do we make this a good code for the future that's equitable for all of our citizens, takes care of our citizens that have concerns, and we move forward and we don't have to revisit this in 10 days?
So here's the deal. There's stuff all throughout your city that doesn't meet code.
Right.
So you're never going to accomplish that.
You could burn the code and just write
No.
one word.
Or burn the city. Okay. You're never going to accomplish, you know, and to me, the word equitable is, you know, a function of, you know, what the laws that were in place at that point in time versus in the laws that are in place right now. So that's what's equitable. Cities are always going to change what they think is right and wrong. Building practices in 1970, oh my God, you know, versus building practices now. But is it equitable to go make somebody tear down their accessory building? Is it equitable to make somebody
Not unless
completely
it's
redo
danger.
the inside of their building because it wasn't their code? So that's the situation. And again, I totally respect where you guys are coming from. What I did with this code amendment was try to address the current situation, try to address alleys, which I'm like, you know, to me, you could leave A up there forever. It doesn't worry me. Like, A worries me zero. If it's on an alley, it meets fire code, and it's not directly abutting somebody else's property. You have 20 feet. So what's the problem with
But
A?
what about alleys, the older alleys that are 10 feet?
Well, then it wouldn't work. It wouldn't qualify for that.
It's not 20.
And if you have an accessory building in a side or rear yard constructed prior to July 7th, and if it happens to be located, and if it happens to not be permitted, because if somebody got something permitted that's not closer than 10 feet, then it's fine anyway, because they're legally non-conforming, so we don't have to worry about them. What B applies to is an accessory building that was not permitted, happens to be less than 10 feet from another structure that was permitted. They're going to have to take it down. This doesn't cover them.
So earlier you said people would build a building next to another building back to back. But this, if we were to just adopt a B and get rid of the date, that would prevent that because they'd have to be 10 feet away from each other. Right.
No, if you adopted B, it wouldn't be 10 feet away from.
But they're both structures, right?
If you got rid of the date, you're potentially opening up for somebody else
Sake.
to construct an accessory
Come on,
building
guys.
5 feet away or 2 feet away from somebody else's
This is a
accessory building
broken
that probably
record.
was
You're
legally
stuck
permitted.
on repeat.
I thought it said
Get to the
10
next
feet from the
subject.
nearest structure.
Yeah, but what that's
Even
saying
the
is
old
built
guy
prior.
to the left
nothing
with the
in here
green
allows-
we're
button-down
not saying
shirt
get
was
rid of the
bored
prior.
with it.
But keep the
You can
I would
tell
What is it?
he's
What-
rocking the chair
what
and
is
about
the
to
code
go to
right now?
sleep on the subject.
It's 5 by 7.
But if
the
you-
5
It's the 5
foot setback.
foot setbacks instead of no setback on A, and then 5 foot setbacks instead of no setback on B.
It's just 5 foot setbacks all around.
Okay.
If you take away the date, what you're doing is you let somebody build it on the property line, and then that takes 10 feet away from your property, which is what Cassie was talking about.
How does it take 10 feet away from my property if she builds it on
Because I'm
mine?
still not gonna,
Because if I don't have a shed and you build one first and you build it,
So
10
10 feet
feet
of rights away from me.
if you
Because
build
I
it
have to
10
build
feet
within 10 feet
from it.
from yours.
Yeah. So if I don't have one, you can build it anywhere you want because there's nothing to
I
build
can
10
push
feet
you
from.
off your property.
And then I
Fire
can't build it. I have to like scoot it
And that's
way
why
over.
the 5 feet, because there'll be 5 feet on either side of this fence.
yeah. We still have the
Now I'm
building code.
understanding
We
this.
still have, and so we have the building code and the fire code. So we have zoning code. The building code and fire code are separate. You can't really trump the building code through the zoning code.
Yeah.
And then you were
The
saying
fire
about
marshal's just not gonna.
10-foot alley. If it's a 10-foot alley and I build on the property line, it can be 10 feet
This
from another
dude's driving
structure.
me
But
nuts,
then what if
guys.
something tall and bulky has to drive through and it hits my building? Because it's only 10 feet and garbage trucks have things that stick out.
Oh
Isn't that your
no,
risk?
things that stick out.
I mean, you know you're accepting that risk because
Stop
if we
adjusting
did
the
that,
mic.
then this law would seem to say you're not accepting a risk because this is perfectly fine. And so then you might not know what's coming. You see what I'm saying?
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering about these other situations that
I don't know which one it
That are
is.
in our
I know it's
community
not my
that we
equipment.
need to think about. There are situations, and this is why I feel like this is slightly rushed, because we're just becoming aware. I would have known about the 10 feet had you not been here.
So let me try and address equity. So equity, and I'm just going to help you. So I understand that you're concerned about being equitable towards people in the future. You know, why do something that allows all these other people to have this one thing, and we're taking away this right from other people in the future? So equity in a city is defined by, number one, like at the Board of Adjustment. That's pretty simple. You know, their goal is to provide equity and provide variances and special exceptions and appeals based on the criteria that's there. And then equity is based on the laws that the city council passes, which in a perfect world are based on a master plan or something like that, and the vision that the community has, and also making sure it's legal with state and federal laws. But there are going to always be situations where a city decides to change a rule and no longer allows one person to do tomorrow what they were able to do yesterday. So if that's, I would advise not using that to define what equity is.
So to boil it down to very simple terms, what this does is waive away everything that happened before July 7th. Says, okay, you're good, you're conforming or legally non-conforming or whatever it is. Then it goes back to everything the same. Everything's the same again.
Yeah.
So it comes down to, do we want to basically forgive everybody for doing that or make them tear their buildings down, which I am not a fan of at all. And I don't know that there's a better way to do it other than just saying, you know what, we're going to let this happen, but let's not let it happen again. I don't want to come here a year from now and somebody comes and says, can we change the code because we didn't get a permit? That's fine.
But we can do something else. Y'all could table this if you want to and have the attorney come back and be here present on this if you want. That's another possibility. I don't want y'all to feel like y'all are rushed into anything. I don't think anybody wants you to feel like you're rushed into anything, and I think your points are well taken, and definitely I appreciate y'all's looking at this globally. That's awesome. So based on the level of concern that you guys have, I mean, definitely y'all can table this. You know, tabling it doesn't compromise anything. It doesn't compromise, you know, resolution of the current situation, and it doesn't, you know, I just brought this to you guys because the attorney advised us to go ahead and move forward with it. And so absolutely, if y'all want to table this until the next meeting and have our attorney that's represented us come back, we can absolutely do that.
bunch of things to do. We could do public hearing.
I'd like to table it, but I want to see some pictures. You can get an overview.
This is not about.
Not
their case.
addressing
can't
one
do it, but-
situation.
This whole thing came up because of
Don't
this.
you have a
So
cell
let's do this.
phone?
So let's do this. Let's have the attorney come back, and then the attorney can advise you of whether or not we can do pictures of those kinds of things. Okay. And so
Alternate Evan, you had a comment?
Yes, and I think Vice Chair Fogg kind of hit it right on with her questions. The point of the date is essentially to say right now for all those who aren't who are in violation, until we deal with this and apply a timestamp of date of forgiveness, they're going to either have to get a permit before doing so, or for those who haven't got permitted, we'll have to go through the process of rectifying their situations, which will include tearing down their buildings or other means of rectifying the situation. I feel that, in a way, I don't feel like this is rushed. I think this has just been a long time coming. I feel I agree with Vice Chair Faw that this is, in a sense, forgiving everyone up to this point, and that, but I would like to see us not set a precedent of being neighbors. We are members of the community, but we are not supposed to be changing the law every single time someone has a gripe with the law itself. Everyone, including us up here, has to deal with the law as it's written. As it's written now, I would have to build a shed. My parents, we have a nice sized shed in our backyard. We had to get it permitted. I feel like we got a couple of permits already. Thank you. A couple of permits for our shed. We had to build it 5 feet from the property line on both sides of our property line. It was not that big of an imposition to us. We simply planned accordingly. So I don't feel this is rushed. I don't want to see this get thrown down the road like just about 80% of the things that come before the city council, before these boards, just because we're a little afraid that it's either rushed or that it's going to cause someone some upset. No, not everyone's going to like what is decided upon. So that is my view on the matter.
Thanks. So here's a question I have, and this goes back to Vice Chair Fow's comment and to your comment as well. Yeah, we're giving an amnesty of sorts. Why would we not give an amnesty in the future? Under what circumstances would we say, no, you're going to knock it down? Because if we're not reasonably going to give an amnesty in the future, if we're seriously not going to give amnesty in the future, let's move forward with this.
Are you talking about amnesty on future accessory buildings?
Yeah.
Well, it's because you're acknowledging that this is not an ideal situation.
No. Got it. In August, somebody builds one that is against this code. Then 5 more people do it. What's the recourse that will actually happen that will prevent this from becoming a stupid law we have to revisit and change again?
I would say, I mean, you could ask the same question and, say you don't require trees anywhere in the city. Say developers are able to come in and just build the ugliest box in the world. And it's just metal, it has no trees, it's painted, hot pink, and the city, because the code allows that. And then the city decides, you know what, we're tired of all these ugly buildings that are hot pink and made of metal, and we want some trees. So they changed the code.
What I'm understanding
the
is
developer says,
you're counting on the goodwill of the citizens to follow the law, but what you haven't answered is, if they don't follow the law, will we actually pursue recourse, or will we just give in?
we
and have
will,
to change
because
it
they
again?
didn't follow the law that was in place at that time.
Why aren't we pursuing recourse in the past?
Because
And not that I want to.
I'm not going to, because I wouldn't go out and look for accessory buildings anyway. I don't go out patrolling neighborhoods looking for accessory buildings.
But that goes against my point.
And
Like,
I
if
wouldn't
we're
do
not
it in the
looking for
future.
them, and
Yeah.
we're not looking for them in the future, and why do we have this in the first place? Like, why do we have something that we're not going to enforce on the books? It looks pretty.
There's no way to know everything that's going on.
Yeah.
And so perfect situation is,
That
is
doesn't
that
mean you change the law.
What do you think?
I mean, people are going to commit crimes, but we're not going to change the law for them. Say,
Exactly.
oh, you robbed a bank. Well, that's okay. You just don't do it again. Like,
yeah, I don't know if
that's
somebody's
my-
robbing a bank, but that doesn't mean we just allow bank robberies just because we're not out there. Like, stuff happens all the time. Computer fraud happens all the time. You don't know. Somebody might be stealing money out of my account right now. I don't know.
FBI.
But that, you see what I mean? That these are the laws that we want to have in place. And, I'll catch somebody, in 2 years that didn't, plant trees or something. I always use the tree example. And like, okay, well, you didn't follow the law. You need to plant those trees in. That was the law was in place.
They refuse.
Well, then there's legal recourse for that.
And if it continues for so long that the city gets tired of it, then are we just going to adopt one of these?
If I may,
Alternate.
it's, in fact, you got right there. I think the reason why we're dealing with this now is the fact that I don't know when the original accessory buildings code was written in past 68. Okay. In fairness, it should be updated simply because it's so long ago. I think dealing with it now is because we have an extremely cantankerous situation in our city legally going on about it. And you know what? We don't have to do this. But your question to the recourse is we continue with what we've been going, the recourse that the city has been going towards. And we either take a hard stance against it or we take a firm stance, which I believe is to grant this one-time amnesty. So that way no one can come back later and say, that was a law that was put in 50 plus years ago. Times have changed. Well, you can't say that when we've updated the law in 2021. And so while I grant that you're concerned about future amnesties, updating the code is one thing versus granting an amnesty simply because, again, of a situation that the city gets uncomfortable about. I'd rather see it into the current situation, but I believe this is a good step forward saying we've updated our code from 60 years ago. Everyone needs to abide by it or suffer legal recourse and use the current legal situation as kind of an example.
But we're really not updating the code because it's going to go back to what it was before. After it's only forgiving the people before July 7th.
Yeah, before.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay.
Commissioner Blackmore.
I think we need to table this thing, come back at a later
Hearing
time.
first.
Let me make one more comment. Laws are imperfect. We've got something here. We're not saying that all that's good, and if you want to keep trying to violate the law, that's on you. But it's here. It's just like any other law. If I want to go out and complain, I've got something to complain according to. I have a neighbor and he's obnoxious and I want to do something about it. And just like the other one, I'll take it out on him. I file a false complaint or a complaint. But you need the law. If you don't have this, then it's like you say, everything's equal. Everybody can violate the law and there's no consequence. Standards. You got to have standards and consequences. So the consequences is totally over in the other soap bucket. But you got to have this so somebody can complain, or somebody is so violently misperforming, misbehaving that you have a law to say something to them or write a ticket. But if you don't have this and you have all that other stuff, they say, well, you never did it before for anybody. And that's what everybody got caught in. So at least put the law out there. So if some good citizen actually feels he's being violated and somebody ought to be ticketed and his building ought to be addressed, so have it. They can go complain. I would like to write in there, and I know I can't, that person better come forward with a signature. The other thing I would like for that to happen is the same thing again, that if there is a complaint, the city bears the responsibility, not the citizen. Okay? The proof. They go out and they build it, hell, they're all not paying attention. So they can go find out what the rules are.
Yeah.
Half the contractors don't.
I think
So let them, I know, I see it. But I just want it to be known. Everybody's defending the city. I think you should defend these guys.
Yeah.
And come forth. Give me a permit. Give me a CO. Give me something. Don't just say, well, I don't have it, but you're at fault.
So I think you're correct, and I think we can continue this for a while. Let's move to public hearing, and Councilman Bradshaw can move forward first at 7:35. That was not as imposing. It's just like, bang, bang.
So I think there's been some good discussion and some valid points made by this board. My thought, might be not close enough. My thoughts are, laws are imperfect. Things that are best intentioned, things change. We talked about alleys. Some are 10 feet, some are 20 feet. Don't even use the alleys anymore, right? The alleys were made for the garbage trucks. And, those of you who may remember, used to have garbage cans just go and put in the back, and they come and pick them up. They don't do that anymore. Everybody has the big roll-out bins, and you put them in the front of your house now. They don't go to the alleys anymore. So half the alleys have trees growing up in them, right? You couldn't even get through anymore. But the purpose of this code that was written in 1968, whatever, was so that you don't have a shed or a building against a back fence, and then somebody else builds another shed against the back fence, and then your shed catches on fire, and then guess what? Their shed's on fire, and then pretty soon the whole neighborhood's on fire, right? So it's fire codes. But I agree with Chair Alonso. If you're going to change this, why not just change it and be done with it? Make it, the point is if your shed backs up to an alleyway, then there's no concern of the fire because there's nothing else there. It doesn't say alleyway. This is a public easement, right? Public right of way. So if you have a public right of way, then you don't have, because you can't build in the right of way. So there you go. You solved the problem. So, I think Brandon's intent was like, let's get this resolve this issue, and everybody else who's got the same issues, it will resolve all these issues. And I think there was some talk of going on Google, and you could probably use Google Earth and count them if you want. Somebody's got that kind of time, but it would resolve a lot of issues. But same thing, who wants to prevent people from doing it in the future and then coming back again? So if you change it permanently, that this is the code that makes us comply, and in the future, if somebody wanted to build it and they have the public right of way, still in compliance. So that's my thought.
So, sorry, still public hearing. That's not time for me to talk. It's time for you guys to talk. Anybody else like to stand up? Have a breather. Okay, we will close public hearing at 7:35. Yeah.
38.
7:38.
Yes.
So let's be sure we know what we're asking Brandon to do next.
Well, let's be sure what we were talking about. Yeah, that's a good one for you to just. You talked.
Okay,
you don't
so
know what
I think we
to
should
talk
just go ahead and
about because you've been
recommend
saying the
that we
same
pass
bullshit
this
over and over for
as
about
it
an
is,
hour.
and then come back and say, hey, let's look at why we have these setbacks and 5 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet, whatever. Is that a good law? If it's not, then we can change it at a later time. But for now, let's put a Band-Aid on this and move forward.
Yeah, I should have put a Band-Aid on it 35 minutes ago.
I hate to say this. Brandon, for other ordinances and things that we invent, we usually have, with the ordinance, the explanation, or at least the archive, to go back to what these distances look like on paper. We had that in the planning book and other places. I just say augment this with what you really want a piece of property to look like in the future going forward, so they can't make a mistake. If you say 5 feet from the property line and there's an alley there, okay. Or it can be 5 feet from a property line otherwise. But just let's draw it out. Everybody's having trouble with what this looks like, but we've got other examples of where there are drawings. Or is it too hard?
Draw out something that shows a building setback 5 feet? Or,
And why? I mean,
I can draw you guys a diagram, but it's just gonna be like a building.
the worst case you're saying,
Yeah, there you go, that's right there, yeah.
yeah, but where's the other house? No.
Okay,
the next
guys,
door
you've
house.
been doing this for over an
Your
hour.
biggest concern is that there's 5 feet on each side, so you got 10 feet
Move
for a fire truck.
on already.
No, 10 feet of fire separation.
Yeah.
20, and fire truck needs 20 feet in the alley, but 10 feet of separation is so the fire doesn't hop. That's,
Yes,
yeah.
okay, so that's not hard to draw. That's what you're saying. And all these, every monitor or numerical example here, just draw it out.
Yeah, we can, when we do our code amendment, eventually we can put some diagrams in.
Yeah, don't go a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
But obviously people don't understand what it's supposed to look like.
Don't know what it's look like? Okay, I'm 5'8".
You have a second?
I lay on the ground,
Yeah,
take
second.
off 8 inches, and you got a good clue. Duh!
Oh, you did? Oh, I
So
thought you did.
my question is, that, and I'm wondering, this might solve
And
some.
I've seen most of these council people.
If I understand correctly, this is on a,
Not one of them is
there
under.
are hypothetically
5
multiple
feet.
buildings within our neighborhoods that have
Wouldn't be hard for them to figure
accessory
out.
buildings on corners. That is my understanding, that have public easements or whatever right of ways on the
Oh,
corners.
for
Do we need
fudge sakes.
to say minimum of 10
Okay,
feet, or
guys,
can we
this
say
is starting
that
to
it's
irritate
on
me. I'm sorry for wasting
that
your
is
guys'
adjacent
time on
to-
this, man.
a 20-foot public right of way?
So
They're
this
just
doesn't void the
continuing
worship
to beat a dead horse beyond. I mean, geez, they beat this horse. It's just an expression, guys. Just an expression. The expression goes, beat a dead horse or something like that. Well, they just beat that dead horse the whole 5 feet, 20 feet, 8 feet into the ground. Get a clue, guys. How hard is it? I mean, if you can't tell 5 feet and you're all 5 feet something, there's this thing. It's in every hardware store. Lowe's, Home Depot. It's called a measuring tape. Go out there. Oh, look, there's the 5 feet mark. Extend one a little bit further if it's big enough. Oh, that's 20 feet. Okay. Problem solved. If you can't read a measuring tape, guess what? There's this thing called the construction crew. Well, not a thing. There's these people, I should say, called a construction crew. They can show you. Maintenance workers can show you. Yeah. If you can't find these people because you're not smart enough to identify them, I can show you and I can point these people out to you. Well, anyhow, guys, remember, as always, sharing is caring. Always be a good neighbor. And remember, the next meeting is 2 days away, I think. Hold on. As I got you guys here. Yeah, well, Hilton, I'm sure they got a plan drawn out on it already. They're just, they love to hear themselves talk, I guess. But yeah, it's just, I don't see why they can waste a whole hour like this. I mean, me personally, I could have had this whole thing done in like 15 minutes. But yeah, guys, I'm pulling up their next meeting now. Okay, guys, their next meeting is June 15th at 5:30 p.m. my time. Remember, guys, if you guys wish to send me, that's great. My PayPal is in the pinned to the top. You can always send me money to get there. If not, that's okay. As always, I appreciate the views, the thumbs up, thumbs down. Talk to you later. And nice seeing you, Hilton. All right.